We're just going.
Hi, everyone. Yay! So, welcome back to another episode of my She Will Not Be Silenced Conversations with Friends. So, I have a new friend on the show today, Miss Jetty Nieuwenhuis, and I'm excited for you all to get to meet her if you don't already know her. You know how you just meet some people and you're like, yeah, I get it, right? You can understand sometimes the similarities in your paths, even though it may be completely uh, different scenarios, but some of the same underlying themes, and that was the case here. So, Yeti, welcome to the show.
Yeah, thank you. I'm excited to be here.
Yes, so we are going to just get right into the episode. So, I always like to start by having my new friends introduce themselves. So, tell us, who is Yeti?
Yeti is a woman that lives in Canada and was born in the Netherlands. I moved to Canada when I was 30 with my husband and then 1 year old son. And Yeti lives on a real farm, a dairy farm to be precise. And in the Netherlands, we had a farm too and sold everything and loaded up 2 containers. And there we were in Canada. I have been a mom. I am a mom of 2 boys, but they're teenage boys now. And I have been silenced or have perceived to be silenced a couple times in my life. And that's why I so resonated with you when I talked with you for the first time,
Mhm.
even though we grew up in total different parts of the world,
Mhm.
um, and have different lives and even live in different countries right now.
Yes.
uh, I felt you, I feel your podcast.
Mhm.
um, and sometimes I have to say that, English is my second language, so I might not come up with the right word or say it
Mhm.
differently, but I hope you understand and everyone understands what I'm saying.
Yeah, certainly. And we have, listeners who listen from all over the world. So I know that some of them will be able to relate to sometimes feeling like they may not have the right word to introduce into the conversation. But I know that even that sometimes has women silence themselves because of sometimes the cultural and language differences. They don't want to be perceived
Yeah.
communicating something that they're not trying to, or vice versa. So you're in good hands here. And if I don't understand, I'll just ask, I'll
Yeah.
clarify so that I can make sure that we're all, able to flow with your journey.
Yeah.
So what do you do for work, Yeti?
Well, I have my own brand and it's called True Yeti without an E, but it just really means True Yeti. I'm here to tell the truth,
Yes.
the reality, which is perfect and imperfect. It's everything. And I'm a certified wellness coach, nutrition coach, personal trainer. Um, in my previous life in the Netherlands, I was a certified makeup artist, and I'm also certified image stylist. So
Yes.
um, I started True Yeti as a wellness coach, coaching women, and I actually let that go this February or March. And really, just my journey just really evolved into what I really always wanted to do. But I felt small and silenced and didn't have the courage to actually pursue those dreams. And that is really what I'm doing now, is being an influencer and modeling and speaking.
Yes.
And so I'm really in between phase, kind of, and rebranding. I get a new website,
Yes.
I get a new logo, and I'm also working on refining my speech and really get that going. So yeah.
That's exciting, actually. I love that you are in it's not even really a transition. It's kind of just like a stepping into what has already felt so true and real for yourself. So do you mind sharing a little bit about that place where you are now and a little bit about why that felt so important for you at this point, at this phase to really own True Yeti?
Yeah, I've always been an intuitive person, and I think that's why my life turned out pretty good. And as it was not always in childhood that way, but that intuition I started to really trust. And I got messages like in the beginning of this year, like on Instagram, brands started to approach me to wanting to work with me, and that made me really excited. And I've always been very excited about Instagram for some reason. And so then I really started thinking, hey, yeah, I my dream as a girl, I was drawing fashion, like dresses and outfits. And I've always loved the fashion and makeup, but I always felt that it was a little bit shallow. I felt I have been shamed for caring about fashion and beauty. And so that's why I didn't step into it in the first place. And for me, starting to coach, I mean, it was just part of the journey, and I really enjoyed it, but it kept on evolving, and I really realized, yeah, I only have one life, and I've done the mothering part, and I've done the farm wife part, and I'm still a farm wife, although I'm not working on the farm, as you may can imagine. But I really felt, I have the freedom. I just want to live my life, my dream life. And my life is already great, but the modeling thing is also a thing I always wanted to do, but it used to be tall young girls, very skinny, and the stories we tell ourselves are not always kind, and I never felt good enough. And luckily the whole world is changing now. The Instagram marketing stores, they want real women. And so that is a great opportunity. Also, I feel that some brands are only focusing on younger people, and your screen was cutting out, but you're back. I want to maybe buy those clothes as well. So I can't really explain it. I really learned to trust my intuition and to see red flags in situations and feeling when people are not good for me, So I just trusted on my intuition, and that's how I'm rolling.
And that's how you're going. So you mentioned that people had tried to or attempted or perhaps did shame you about really feeling connected and feeling and enjoying beauty and fashion, right? Can you tell us a little bit about what are some of the things that people perhaps said to you about that, and how did that impact you and keep you from really stepping into it back then during those times?
I don't know if people have. Sorry, there's the hair. Yeah,
Right.
I don't know if people really said anything. But it's more looks, right? It's I think in general too, in the Netherlands, people are pretty fashionable, pretty stylish. And so when I moved to Canada, you know, when I did grocery shopping in a small village, I felt like a movie star. You know, that is a great feeling sometimes, but also I felt too much. And so I have, in the beginning year of living here, I adapted different styles because I felt too much. And I've always liked to buy more expensive stuff. I mean, as young as I was, I would drive my mother nuts and pick the most expensive pair of sandals. You know, it and that is in the beginning when I came here, I let that go because I felt too much. I felt well, people were looking me over, you know, like um, but that's what we do in the Netherlands. You dress up for just going to the grocery stores. You know, you hop on your bicycle and you look nice, even on Monday morning. You know, and I like that because, you know, dressing up makes me feel powerful, makes me feel confident. It adds to my inner beauty. And that's how I feel about fashion. And of course, during COVID, I had many days with my black sweatpants and t-shirt and no makeup. And, you know, as things open up a little bit here, I just feel happy. I have a reason to put on makeup and, you know, um, feel good. So that shame is totally gone now. But I felt it many times. And I also felt, you know, I have been to law school. I didn't finish it. I went in Amsterdam. And so I was, you know, surrounded by, I don't know, it just gave me the feeling, you know, clothes are not important, maybe, you know, fashion is not that important, you know, what is important about fashion?
Mm-hmm. Okay. So I wanted to bring up something that you mentioned and see if this feels accurate for you. On a lot of the episodes that I record with like my friends, the topic almost always comes up about this idea of self-silencing, right? Like self-silencing or even self-shaming. And I
Mm-hmm.
say that because almost every single person, including in my own journey, right, is there are times when I silenced myself. I actually stopped myself from going forward or stepping into what I wanted to because of the perception I felt from other people, even if their mouth didn't actually say anything, right? You know, you
Mm-hmm.
mentioned the looks or, you know, the this. And I have found like every one of my co-hosts have been like, yeah, well, I actually silenced myself because their words never came out of their mouth, right? Do you relate to that in some way?
Yeah, I do. And I think I've had it in the Netherlands a little bit too, but I think mostly in Canada. You know, I came to a new country and you want to make, you're just desperate to make friends, right? And it wasn't in 2002 like a big online space where you could meet people all over the world, women, like-minded women.
Mhm.
And so I was searching, and that brought me some yeah discomfort sometimes, but so I felt a little bit too that in Canada it was a little bit behind where I live with for example equality between men and women. So in that way I felt a little bit silenced more by my environment. And also with people I hung out, you know, at some point I wanted to start my own business. In 2013, I went to New York and became an image stylist. And it was my dream to become a fashion blogger, which I'm kind of in that space. I'm doing that right now, right? It's So, but I quit after 6 months because why do you want a job? Like, you have a nice house, you have a husband and kids. Why do you want a career? And I always felt, I had bulimia at the time, and I believe I had bulimia because I wasn't fulfilled. I didn't know what my purpose was. I didn't have the courage to step into my purpose and my own power and my own truth. Um, so I felt definitely silenced, and never by my husband, never by my own husband. He's pretty modern. Uh, and but it was just when we came here and when I tried to adapt to the society here, yeah, I felt that way.
Wow. And I want to acknowledge you, Yeti, um, for your willingness to mention about your journey with having bulimia. And is that something that started for you when you arrived in Canada? Is it something that you journeyed with when you were in the Netherlands still? Can you tell a little bit about your journey through bulimia for any of our listeners who may be at that place or perhaps have been along that journey?
Yeah, it started actually when I was 18 and when I was in my high school final year, or maybe yeah, I know I was 18. And so I was pressure, and my dad said something that I would not succeed or something in that. So that was pretty, um, not, I wouldn't say traumatizing, but pretty sad. And another thing I realized lately is that one of my best friends, she moved to university to Amsterdam that year. So I felt abandoned, right? For the maybe the third time or fourth time in my life. So that's really what triggered the start of it. And it went on till I was 40, but I have to say that it wasn't always present. I had off times, but when I emigrated in that year, I became pretty skinny. I dieted, and then my body would become so hungry, and my mind, that I started a bulimia again, and that was really the stress of the the selling, the buying, the packing the stuff, the uncertainty. So then it came back. I really started to become serious about healing when I was 37. My dad passed away then in the Netherlands, and he had undiagnosed PTSD. Uh, and so he had a pretty sad life, and I didn't have a good relationship really with my dad, but I went to his funeral. Luckily, I was able to go, and that really set off. He was a war veteran, and I started uh, to read about what he went through and stuff, and that really helped me start the healing process. Um, then I kind of was free for a little bit, and it came back when I was 40. I was training for an Ironman, and I had an Ironman, a triathlon coach that had me on a starvation diet. And, I wanted to do it perfect, all these rules. And then I slipped back into bulimia. And 2 weeks before my race, that was my last episode ever. That was September 2012. That was my last bulimic episode, and then I struggled a little bit with binge eating for a while, and now I've found balance. But it's when you have had an eating disorder, you always have to be aware about it. So I have to make sure that I'm eating the foods that I love. I need ice cream sometimes. I need lots of chocolate.
Uh-huh.
I also want to eat healthy. You know, it's all about balance, and I need to be aware. And I have to admit that at the beginning of COVID, I had a couple of binge, you know, like days that I was like, oh, you know, the uncertainty again. And I think the linking to, you know, to some past events that it kind of reminded me of, and you fall back into that. But I've really, it's good. It's all good now. it's it's just about awareness, and it will always be. It's always something I will have to watch.
Mm-hmm. You mentioned that you said it was September 2012 when you had your last episode with bulimia. Was there something during that time that like alerted you to be able to kind of stop, or was it just something that was internal for you that just kind of realized that I have to kind of bring in a head to this?
Um, Yeah, I think it was internal. It was really during a bike ride, and I was so exhausted. You know, it was a long bike ride, and I went home. I didn't finish the bike ride, and so I was upset with myself, and I binged, I purged, and then I was like, and that kind of went on for during the summer. So this was September 2012, and I decided, you know, I'm going to confide in my coach, and I'm going to tell him. And I think even though he was kind of the reason that it kind of triggered to go back into an eating disorder, I told him, and I think that for me was enough um, to really wanting to stop. Like, it was really like, I don't want to do this anymore. I just had enough with it. And um, my husband knew of it also since my 20s. I could tell him, but I mean, he's not a therapist. He could never help me,
Mm-hmm.
you know. And so, but telling my coach at the time, I think that was, and I was just so done with it. I just felt like exhausted and like, yeah, this is not how I want to move through life anymore.
Yes, yes. Yes, I think that, to me, that's very powerful, because when we journey with our experiences, right, especially ones that we journey with over a significant period of time, or when we're journeying with something in our life and it kind of comes and goes and comes and goes, I always see so much power in the internal kind of guide for yourself that kind of says, enough now. You know what I mean? That
Yeah.
internal guide that kind of wants to like actually learn to heal together. I always find so much power in that because I think that it's really easy for us as a culture to dismiss or minimize the importance of just that internal knowing, that intuitive
Mhm.
knowing. Like we always get so fixated on some terrible thing happened. Like I was riding the bike and I tumbled down the hill and broke my jaw, and that made me realize, right? And we often want to hear some type of physical thing that brought it to a halt. But there is power and sexiness to me and when it's an internal trigger, right, that happens that kind of just says, you know what, Yeti, it's enough now, right?
Yeah.
Like, you
Yeah.
know what I mean? Like I think I would love to see, just as a culture, us really embrace more of that, because I think if we did, people would heal on their journeys a lot more effectively, right? Then rather than waiting for some terrible, awful thing to happen before that recognition actually kicks in, you know?
Mhm. Yeah.
Yeah, so I love that you shared that. And so when we talk about a little bit, when we're doing our intake, you mentioned being silenced like by family.
Mhm.
What are some experiences that you have feeling silenced by what some circumstances in your family or even in just where you're from?
Um, Yeah, it was mostly, I feel, within my family. I had old parents. So I was the fifth child, and my parents had me at 44 and 46. So I had a brother that was 20. So that's a
Right.
whole different culture
Mhm.
there, and my dad was born in 1925. The parents went through World War II. So that's a whole different world, right? That I got into that. And so I was this outgoing, fun little girl. And I believe I recently was like, hey, I got into my family to give light and happiness and fun, because it was sort of a heavy family with a dad with PTSD.
Mhm.
My mother had some trauma too, and so they had a difficult life, and they felt that life was difficult. And there I came, this open, happy girl, that picked her friends. I think when I went to kindergarten, kind of that age, I picked my people, right? Then I started to pick friends, and then I noticed that it wasn't always appreciated in my family, or by some members, I should say. And so it was thought sometimes that I was a different person with my friends, and that I was myself at home, and that was not the case. Well, I became a people pleaser big time. I
Mhm.
morphed into all these personalities to be liked. But here I am at 48, and I still have that girlfriend from when
Yeah.
I was 5. We
Yeah.
talked last week, and she's actually going to live in Canada next year for 3 months with her family. So, I felt that I was being silenced. I was not allowed to be myself. And lucky enough, I found myself now. And it's not always easy, because sometimes I keep on telling those stories, to myself. Or especially 2 years ago when I started my business, like things like, who does she think she is, right? By
Mhm.
going on video, and you
Yeah.
know those were the things I felt at home. And so it was just safer to not be really seen, right? And to be to be crazy outside the home,
Mhm. Mhm.
to
Yeah.
be a rebel outside the home.
Mhm. Mhm.
Because a rebel, I still am a rebel, and I never fitted in, really, and that's something I have become to embrace too.
Yes.
I'm happy I don't fit in, and I tell my kids too, you know, don't worry about the popular people, because it doesn't matter, when you're 40, you have a total different look, and you'll probably be the person that is living a good life.
Absolutely. Mhm.
And
And
that is my
will be who you
experience.
are. Yeah, you mentioned about and it's funny because I've had I think one of my conversation with friend episodes, I think it was with my friend Janae, and we're talking about this idea of being silenced like in the home essentially. And I can relate to that. And mine I laughed because it was a little opposite in terms of how they said, like, so for example, I was kind of told that I was being the real me at home, and I was putting on and being too much outside of the home. So it was kind of an opposite thing, but it's like I felt like I was 3 or 4 different people, like because I felt less like myself at home. Right. When I was
Mhm.
able to be out with people I had chosen to connect with, or when I was able to be out with people who weren't judging me based on the things that they knew, I thrived. Right. I felt it was such a different experience. And at home, I just was not that. Right. I wasn't able to really be because I'm different than a lot of other people, and especially in my family where we grew up from, I grew up to be a people pleaser, and people pleasing was a very challenging thing that kept me conforming. And, when I really wanted to soar, right, it kind of kept me a little bit too with mediocre expectations, like that was the accepted norm, because being anything different was weird, or or you're not being real, or you're being someone else, or you're being too much, or too whatever it is. And so when you said that, I was kind of like chuckling and nodding my head, not because at your experience, but just thinking about how I can imagine so many of our listeners like nodding their head like, yep, yep, right, just because of being able to relate to feeling like, people, we were silenced, we were put into a box of what was acceptable, or who we had to be, and then when you finally get to a point in your life where you're like, I love who I am now, right? I wish I had been able to love and appreciate that person back then. But you get to a point where you're just like, what matters is how I feel about myself. Not the way my family thinks about me or other people outside of my inner circle think about me. You do get to that point, but it's challenging, and I feel like a lot of chaos gets caused along the way, and a lot of heartache too, when you feel like you constantly have to be different people depending on the circumstances that you find yourself in, and it's exhausting, to be quite honest.
Yeah. No, it is. And I think still certain people will think like, oh, why does she have to be, well, like right now on a podcast, why does she want to tell her story? Why can't she just do her homework, right? And still, I feel that story sometimes, when my husband totally supports me. And I mean, I have supported him with, raising the kids, and now for me, it's just time to travel for my business too, right? Once this is all over, I want to go away once a month and go to the US too, and do speaking gigs, modeling, and whatever comes on my path. And my husband is okay with it. And sometimes I ask him like, well, yeah, are you sure? And can I say this? And he's like, yeah, I don't care.
Now that's awesome, because that's something that often keeps, especially women, that keeps them with the self-silencing, is because they aren't sure if something is okay to share, like in a public forum, that's why I chuckled when I started this podcast. And well, even before I started the podcast, I knew I wanted to do this like years ago. And I knew the name back then. I was like, it's going to be called She Will Not Be Silenced, right? Which I got a real big kick out of, because I built most of my life, I felt silenced, right? And I was the one, I'm like you, like, what people were like, why does she have a podcast? And why does she need to do this? And why does she need to, right? It was a lot of that, and so I got a kick out of it. And I knew that was the perfect name for it, because it was like an inside joke to myself, right? About, how, and so like, it was just, I'm like, she's not going to be silenced, right? She will not, like, she's going to talk about this. Or I'll be like, what is my mom going to say if she hears me? Like, it's still like,
Oh yeah.
You still go through it, and it was kind of like an inside joke on that, because sometimes you're just not sure what is okay, to say. And I always tell people, the tough part about telling our stories is when those stories become someone else's stories to tell. And we talked about that a little bit on you and I when we had a prior conversation, is that sometimes the bridge walking between speaking up what's true for us and not imposing or infringing on someone else's right to privacy and discernment about the experience. It's a really interesting, bridge, I think, to walk, I love that your husband's like, I don't care, tell whatever. Like that's very empowering. That's awesome.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's awesome.
Yeah. I mean, he's totally my opposite. And, yeah, I've been just very lucky with him. We've been married 23 years, and not everything is always perfect too, right? Marriage is work too, as you know, but I mean, he's really open-minded and really easygoing, and he is not fitting in at all. So so he is good, you know, and I want to talk about everything, like things that are controversial, like or not because they're controversial, but because I want to talk about it. And you know, that's what as much as I love Instagram, um, you know, there have been times that I felt that I started to feel depressed because you see these perfect models, you know, living perfect lives, happy, always happy. And you know, you tell yourself, yeah, why is my life not like that, and why don't I look like that? And I mean, I'm happy with how I look. I'm embracing, you know, but you know, it and now what I love about social media is becoming more real. I mean, there are becoming more people that are real, and I want to talk about real things, you know. And yeah, and I'm lucky that my husband supports me in that, and I don't have to ask him permission. That's literally what he says. Yeah, you don't have to. And then I'm like, well, maybe some other farmers, because he's, you know, in a farm world, they will look at you and think, oh wow, they're weird. And he's like, yeah, well, I don't care.
Yes.
I'm weird too. So yeah, I'm lucky with that. But you know, I still tell that story sometimes, you know, and still sometimes it's hard with people pleasing. I'm not people pleasing anymore, but I am sometimes, you know, worried about, oh, what will that person, or what if I get a bad comment, or you know, like, and that will have to happen.
Yes.
And I will need to harden around that and not be attached to that, you know. But it just takes work and time to get totally rid of it.
Definitely, you know, and I would say I personally wouldn't say that you're lucky. I think that you attracted the type of partnership that would work well for you. You know what I
Yeah.
mean, right? I'm pretty sure you've put in the work, you've done, the work in the marriage for it to be at a place where he's like, I don't care, don't silence yourself, be who you are. I don't think it's lucky. I think you did the work and you're able to really embrace and step into and have, that type of discernment in your partnership. And I think that's awesome, so
Yeah.
don't minimize it because like it's,
No.
you know,
Yeah, and my husband's has always said, like, happy wife, happy life. You know,
yes.
because when I had friends, I still have friends, but you know, sometimes you lose people along the way. And some people sometimes said, "Oh, your husband is so easygoing. He lets you do that. He lets you go alone to Amsterdam." You know, I'm like, nobody owns me. Like,
Yeah.
but he also has, you know, I moved with him. It was his childhood dream to move to Canada and farm. And so he feels also like, I need to have a life, right? I need to be happy. And so, yeah, I'm really, really ready for that independence now, you know,
Yeah.
when my boys are grown up and I'm married, but I'm independent too, you know.
Yeah,
I'm
certainly.
not owned.
So you mentioned that, when you do your speaking or you're engaging, you want to be able to talk freely about topics, even if they're controversial or unpopular, or such. What's something that you really enjoy talking about that people may or may not know?
Um, well, I've talked a lot about my eating disorder. I've talked a lot about my childhood issues, trauma that I had. Um, and seriously, I like to talk about everything that this week I talked about Botox that you should do whatever you feel like doing, and because everybody denies it. And I don't understand why. I do Botox and I love it. And I decided to write about it, and that's not, I don't see it a lot. I don't see, and I hear a lot of denial about it too. And I'm okay with it if you want to do it or if you don't want to do it, but let's respect each other. Like we're all human beings, no matter what color you are, what size you are, if you're gay or transgender, whatever. We're all human beings, and I think you should respect each other, and you are entitled yourself to do what you want to do with your body and your life. So but I mean, everybody can have different opinions about it. So that's what I talked about.
Yes.
Yeah.
So,
And
did you get like a range of people? Like, what type of comments or feedback did you get on like that post?
actually, well, I was a little bit nervous about it. It's that what I mentioned before, that people pleasing part. And I was not worried, but I was like, oh, I'm going to get some judgment. I'm going to get, and no, it all positive. I posted it on Facebook too. At first I was like, no, I'm not going to post it on Facebook. Only on Instagram. And then I posted it on Facebook, and most women were like, yes, like, like, oh, or some were like, oh my gosh, I love you. Like, and yeah, so I was surprised. I was like, that wasn't too bad.
Yeah, that's something that, I always find interesting is when like you post something and you just automatically assume that you're going to get the worst of the worst sometimes commenting. And people are like, I'm so glad you spoke about that because yeah, you like,
Yeah.
oh, like what was I tripping about? Right? Like, so it's just like
Yeah.
there's that thing where it's like you naturally go to what the worst case scenario is going to be,
Yeah.
as opposed
Yeah.
to thinking people are going to embrace this. Like, it's so odd that we do that. I mean, I know why, because unfortunately society has conditioned that so much into what is normal, that everyone has an opinion. Everyone
Yeah.
feels entitled to spew their opinions without considering being responsible, respectful, and all of those things. Like I always say, most people don't agree a lot with, like, I talk about that being like, because I do identify as Christian, right? And the negative stereotypes that have come with being a Christian are like all over the place, right? And it's like, but a lot of Christians don't view things the same way that I do, right? There's, it's across the spectrum. There will be things like I'm very open and accepting of people. I think we can be respectful. Like there isn't that judgment that often is associated with it, right? But I was saying that to say people are always going to view things differently, even when they have similar viewpoints about things. But we naturally always go with the worst case scenario, which sometimes keeps us from even mentioning it when people really want to
Yeah.
and really want to see what
Yeah.
we feel.
Yeah. That's literally what happened yesterday. Was literally like, oh, thank goodness you're talking about this. That was like, okay. And I wanted to talk about it, and sometimes you have something that what you mentioned, that you post something and you think, oh, I can't, oh, you start to doubt yourself, right? Because you're afraid of the judgment. And
Mhm.
I just want to learn to be totally free of that. I mean, how amazing is the world then, right? If you can totally let go
Mhm.
of all that. And I know that I will get there. I
Mhm.
will get there with
I'm
ups
rooting
and
for
downs.
you because I think that honestly, I feel for people who listen to this podcast in particular, I think that is the one, probably one of the few like common things that every one of us has in common is really wanting to be to that place where it's less and less of a concern what other people's opinions, thoughts, perspectives are. Because I was talking to my husband the other day and I was laughing. I chuckle a lot about stuff because, you have the mental talk in your head. And I was like, man, I looked at myself from like today, from just like 2 years ago or 3 years ago. And I'm like, what was I worried about? Like back then, I was, I was very much more guarded. I was worried about saying the wrong things and all these other things. And now I'm just like, I have something to say and I don't care what. And so it's kind of funny because like you look at it's like it's a journey. And I
It
feel
is.
like the more we do it, the more we have these types of spaces to be able to freely talk about things and you know what I
Yeah.
mean, know that you're not going to
Yeah.
be bashed. I feel
Yeah.
like the more we do it, the much longer the impact will be, right? Because I've found
Yeah.
when I've continually spoken up about things, I continued to do it. But when I only did it sporadically, those thoughts would creep back in. Oh my gosh, what if
Yeah.
somebody's gonna judge? Like, you know what I mean? And so it's like really, I think, doing it on a more continual basis and bringing people into the conversations and realize that you will never please everyone, ever, never, ever. There is not one person on this planet that everyone likes, not one. And it
Hmm.
could be because of your race, it could be because of how you look. It's so many things, not one
Yeah.
person, right? And so
Mhm.
I think we have to remember that, like who we are. Like you will never, ever, ever change everyone, but you talk to the people who will resonate what it is you have to
Yeah.
say. And I think the more we do that, it's just like, you get more comfortable pushing certain boundaries of what you're saying. You know what I mean? And each
Yeah.
time you just do it in a way that feels right for you. Because I still sometimes there's a lot of things I don't say, but I realize it's not because some of it is not because of judgment. It's because I feel like it's my story. I feel like it's my privacy. There's so
Mhm.
many other factors so there's some things that I don't feel like Facebook needs to know, right?
Yeah.
Sometimes I used to always think it was because I was worried about judgment. And some of it was like, well, no, it's just like this is sacred to me and I don't feel the need that everyone knows it. And so sometimes I think it's that too,
Yeah.
but yeah, so I totally know what you mean about getting to that place. But I think that as we do it more, as we
Yeah.
speak about the unspokens more, I think it's going to become so much more like natural, to do it. And
Yeah.
look at where we are now just from a few years back, or, you know
Oh
what I mean?
yeah.
Like it's really awesome when you think about that, like along your own journeys.
Yes. Oh, it is. Yeah. Sometimes you have to stop and look back and just realize how far you've come, right?
Yes, 100%. Yeah, I agree with that, because I'm like, what did I say now? Or sometimes, like, how Facebook has those memories that pop up? And I don't,
Yes. Yeah.
anybody who follows me on Facebook, I don't post very often. I'm very often at all. So when I am on there and I see like the memories pop up, I'm like, I loved it, but I love that I said it, but I couldn't believe that I said that, right? Because the old me would not have ever said it. And I'm like, oh my gosh, like so I get really excited because I'm like, what? I don't remember it. It was probably one of those things like just say it, press enter, and like get off the computer.
Yeah.
You're like, I'm gonna put it out there and I'm gonna log off so I don't delete it. It was probably one of
Yeah.
but when I look back, I'm like, wow, I actually said it. So it's kind of fun seeing, you know,
Hmm.
our
Yeah.
progress as we kind of move along
Yes.
that. Mhm.
Yeah. No, it is.
So Yeti, what is it that you would like for people to know about you in terms of you're moving forward in life and who you're really desiring to embody and embrace, and um, just what you're wanting to own in your life that you may not have shared with us so far.
Um, yeah, I just want to live my dream life, and I don't want to be silenced for it. People are free to judge me,
Mhm.
but I'm not taking from anybody else, and I just want to live this life to the fullest, and I would love for other women to uh, feel and resonate with me that want that too, whatever that is. That can be being a teacher or a nurse, it can be having your own business, it can be, but I hope for other women um, to find their light, their shine or sparkle, and show it to the world, and know that everyone is unique. And I want to embrace my uniqueness, and have fun, and be excited about my life,
Yes.
and really live life and be awake. And yeah, that's what I'm showing on my Instagram account. um, I also have a LinkedIn account, by the way, and I still have a website too, but that's kind of going down and is being rebuilt totally, because wellness coaching is different than what I do now. But I'm just totally stepping into my dreams, and I have big dreams, and I just want everybody to know that it's not too big. Nothing is too big, and you can um, totally own it, and nobody has the right to silence you and to stop you. And yeah, that's really what I want to bring in to the world. And also that I embrace my past. I'm Because here I am today. I'm um because of my childhood trauma, and that with PTSD and bulimia and Lyme disease, I am the woman I am today, and I'm doing the things I'm doing now because of that. It and I used to feel a victim, and I used to feel that life happened to me, or I don't know if I say that right, but now I feel like life is happening for me.
Yes, yes.
And so yeah, and one day I hope to write a book too, but I mean, I can't step into too many things.
It's gonna unfold so naturally. Because
Yeah,
the beautiful thing about kind of reinvigorating your brand around Yeti is that it can accommodate whatever it is you decide to do. Right? That's
yeah,
the
oh yeah,
beautiful thing
yeah,
is that container is you. So
yeah,
anything you decide to do, anyone
yeah,
you decide to become, that container is able to hold that and to grow
yeah,
with that. And like
yeah,
that's the beauty of doing that.
yeah,
Yeah, so
yeah, you're totally right.
that'll
Yeah.
be exciting. So Yeti, one on our final question, um, was kind of a two-part question. The first one is, where can people find you online if they want to connect with you and follow you? And who would really be best to perhaps follow you and connect with you online?
um yeah, well, I want everybody that resonates with me to connect with me, and I love to connect with anybody too that feels me.
Yes.
We will probably connect.
Mm-hmm.
So True Yeti on Instagram, so TRUJETTY. That's my Instagram handle. And Yeah, I'm crazy about Instagram. I love it. I don't know why.
Yeah.
So I would love for you to connect
To connect over
with
there.
me on
Yeah.
Instagram. Yeah.
Great. And then for anyone who can't like write it down or Instagram at the minute, because sometimes we're podcasting, we're listening while driving and all of that. When you go to the episode webpage at keishashields.com/podcast, you'll see Yeti's conversation and her link will be there so that you can follow up along with her and connect with her. So don't worry if you didn't remember that, it'll be there for you. You can click on it and follow. And I wanted to say, Yeti, thank you so much for joining me, for reaching out and connecting, and for being a guest here on She Will Not Be Silenced. Thank you so much.
Yeah, thank you for letting me on your show. I really enjoyed it, and I always love connecting with like-minded women. And we should not put each other down. We have to support each other and empower each other, and it just feels so good to be with like-minded women. So it
Yes,
was a pleasure.
absolutely. Absolutely. So for those of you all listening, feel free to let us know what you think about our episode. If you can relate to anything, you can let us know. When you go to the podcast page, you'll be able to share your thoughts and comments, or if you have questions for Yeti. And so I will catch you all on the next episode. Ta ta.